your girl. We're back for another monthly comic book wrap up. And I gotta say, I'm kind of proud for keeping on the ball. You know, the past couple comic book wrap ups have been coming out super duper duper late. However, I'm gonna keep up with it. I'm gonna do the thing. And we're gonna talk about all of the wonderful books that I read in August. Now, it might look like a lot, but I did not read that much in August. And the reason why I say I didn't really read that much in August is because 5 of the books that are here and the one that is back at the library, they're basically all the same character. So I'm going to kind of lump them into one. So we're going to kind of have a little quick, fun little comic book wrap up. I know lately they've been pushing like an insane amount, like 40 minutes. But we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about some fun books and one really, really bad book. So, without further ado, here's everything that I read in the month of August. We're just gonna get out of the way, okay? We are just gonna get the stinky, stinky book right off the bat. And, you know, it's kind of sad, because this is the book that I started with for the month of August. And I could have let it sour the rest of the month, but I didn't. And yes, I'm talking about Space Bandits by Mark Millar and Matteo Scalero. Now, Matteo Scalero, listen, let's get this out of the way here. Matteo Scalero is probably the best part about this book. His art, his covers, his colors, his character designs, everything is literally perfect in this book when it comes to his part of the deal. Where it fails is in Mark Millar. Now, I kind of took a risk with this book. If you hadn't noticed in my graphic novel haul, I had mentioned that, you know, this is a peak aesthetic book, and it should be, because it's about 2 very different women. We have Thena, who has been wronged by her boyfriend, and doing so has left her into space prison. And then we have Cody, who is this big space bandit. You see what I did there? But she is this big space bandit who has kind of been left for dead by her gang. So both of these women have been wronged. They come together, and it's supposed to be this really fun, female empowering tale of friendship and revenge. But it's not that. I mean, it is that in a way. I will give it some credit. I didn't know what was happening half of the book. The pacing in this book is really, really bizarre and really, really awkward. The character writing in this book is really, really awkward. Cody and Thena don't really have a whole lot of interaction, and yet they end up becoming best friends by the end of the book anyway. There's also these really weird and glaring 80s pop references, and I thought that if it was like an 80s themed space book that it would be really, really fun. However, you only see like one thing to Lionel Richie, and you see another one for Molly Ringwald in the first issue, and then I think there's some really weird one at the last issue, because this is only a 5-issue miniseries, and then that's it. And that to me is just really glaring. If Mark Millar had stuck with the theme of 80s and ran it all the way through his space opera here, whatever you want to call it, I think that would have been really fun. But this book just fell flat. There was no characterization. There was no plot. Yeah, our girls go around and they're killing people and they're getting their revenge. But it's not really a fruitful revenge. It's not really anything hearty. It's not really anything satisfying. And it just really rubbed me the wrong way, because this book, honestly, aside from Mark Millar being attached as its writer, this book has everything that it should to being a really fun, awesome, girl gang, peak aesthetic Mars book. And it just was really, really crappy. And not only was this book crappy, but it had the audacity to do a Mark Millar crossover with Shark the Bounty Hunter at the very end, which I thought was ridiculously just stupid. So if we're going to be seeing a Sharky and the Bounty Hunter meet Space Bandits crossover in the future, I'm going to take a hard pass on it. Now, if you're like me and you like girl gangs and you like really, really good art, I think maybe flipping through this book in a bookstore, or maybe getting it at your local library if they have it, I think that would be a really good choice. Do I think you need to spend your money on it? Don't do it. Don't make the mistake that I did. I bought this book on discount and I'm regretting it. That's how upset I am about Space Bandits. But we're going to keep it positive. We're going to keep it rolling, because every other book I read this month was pretty good. So since we're on the topic of good books and we're on the topic of really good books, I think we need to talk about Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is a new series from Image Comics. It's actually a horror series. So Philadelphia follows the tale of James, who's a cop in Philadelphia after his father has gone missing. When he finds out that his father has gone missing, he also finds out that vampires are involved and that vampires are a very real thing. So we already have vampires in Philadelphia, but then we're going to add John Adams and Abigail Adams as vampires, and you just got a really, really fun, really whirlwind book. This book is really inventive. It's really creative. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely a book that I did not expect to love as much as I did. I'll be honest when I say that first issue I had a lot of problems with. I think there was some really weird things with the pacing in regards to that first issue. However, once you get through that first issue, Philadelphia is just a really fun time. It's a really great take on the horror genre. I really like seeing these black influences into horror. We've seen it a lot lately with Jordan Peele and his movies, and I feel like this is going to be an excellent adaptation. I know it's already been picked up, I think by Blumhouse. I think they've been sniffing around on it, but I'm just really excited to see more from Philadelphia, because that first trade really honestly sets it up as something entirely different that we haven't seen before. Not only that, but as a girl that came from Philly, listen, I'm a Philly girl. As a girl that came from Philly, I really love being able to read this book and seeing backgrounds that I recognize, or seeing streets that I've walked down, or seeing scenery where it's like, I know where that's located. Not only that, but Philadelphia uses John, which is a Philly slang. And listen, man, it's nice to see your girl's hometown represented in a really, really good book. So spooky season is coming up. If you need a nice little spooky read, if you want a little horror read, if you want to experience something different in vampires, because we know vampires has been done a million times before, but if you want to see something a little bit different, pick up Philadelphia, because let me tell you, man, you in for a treat. So I've kind of been at odds with DC Comics lately. Like, I'm not gonna lie, DC Comics has kind of been disappointing me. I've talked about it in the past couple of videos. Hell, I made a whole video in regards to my disappointment with DC Comics. Yet for some reason, I have been binging a lot of DC Comics. And when I say binging, I mean I'm rereading old series that either I haven't touched, or books that I've had on my shelf that I've just been meaning to. And it feels like for the month of August, because I'll be honest with you, the rest of this stack is nothing but DC Comics. And that's really weird for me, because if you've seen my comic book wrap-ups lately, a lot of them have been very indie heavy, or at least they've had a nice mesh between indie, Marvel, and DC. Yet for the month of August, we're going really hard into DC. I finally took the time to read Mr. Miracle. Now, when I say read Mr. Miracle, yes, I read it in its single issues, and yes, I loved it. However, I've had this trade sitting on my shelf since like last year. And not only has it been sitting on my shelf, but it's been sitting on my shelf with a very cool Mitch Gerads signature. So Mr. Miracle follows Mr. Miracle, of course. And if you don't know who he is, he's an escape artist in the DC Comics universe. So that's basically his power. He grew up on Apocalypse, which is not a very fun place. And he kind of adapted that ability of escape. And so that's his powers. Not only that, but Mr. Miracle is married. And I don't know how, but Mr. Miracle is married to what is probably the best woman in comics. I am talking about Big Barda. Listen, hold on, we need to take a derail moment for just a tad second. Because it is not a That Comic Girl video if I am not talking about my undying and devoted love to some warrior comic woman of some sort. Pat on the back for you if you guessed it this month, I would be talking about Big Barda. Now, granted, I'm going to have to cut off some points because it's not a new love for Big Barda. This is a pre-existing love for Big Barda. However, I will give you credit if you guessed that the next girlfriend on Mars's warrior girlfriend list was Big Barda. So I love Big Barda. She's so cool. She's so rad. She's so muscly. She could step on me. This book is really, really weird because it's like a domesticated look into their life while they're also fighting this really huge and regal war on Apocalypse. Tom King and Mitch Gerads honestly went from the ground up and kind of reworked this character. Mr. Miracle for the longest time honestly was kind of a joke character, and they kind of brought him into the modernized comics world and kind of made him a serious character. This book packs a lot of heart. It has a lot to deal with depression. It has a lot to deal with becoming a new parent, a lot to deal with being in a relationship, and a lot to deal with just perseverance and having that feeling of moving on and not giving up even when everything is at your front door. This book is also absolutely hilarious, and I feel like it does something completely different from comic books that we've seen in the past, especially when we look at Cape Comics. It definitely has a unique style in it that I absolutely love. This book is also really, really neat because every single page is a 9-panel page. Yes, every single page in this book is a 9-page panel, and I think that lends itself to some really great and some really unique storytelling. This is definitely probably the book that put Tom King on the map. It's definitely one of the best books that he has ever done, period. So I'm sure you've heard people talking about this book, but if you like his Adam Strange, if you like his Batman, if you liked his Vision, you definitely have to pick up Mr. Miracle. I also kind of recommend reading Mr. Miracle if you don't know a whole lot about the character, don't know a lot about the DC universe, because this book really is self-contained. You see some appearances here and there from other characters. You see them mention some other characters, but for the most part, they do a really good job at shutting Mr. Miracle and Big Barda into their own story and lending itself to a self-told story. So I definitely think that if this book has been on your to-read list, but you've been kind of hesitant about it because you don't know if it's going to be too much for you, I definitely recommend picking up this book. And I will say, reading this book in a self-contained version, rather than reading it month to month in single issues, it definitely treated itself to a different experience for me. I think it was a lot better reading it all together, and there was a lot of things that I realized I had missed reading it in single issues that I picked up in Mr. Miracle. So Mr. Miracle is so good. It's ridiculously good. It's one of my favorite DC comics of all time. So remember when I said that I read basically nothing but one character? That one character was Batwoman. I read nothing but Batwoman again because I really love Kate Kane. So first off, the reason why I went on a Batwoman binger, and I tend to do this with characters where I'll think about a character and I'll decide, hey, I really miss that character. I really want to read more of that character, and I will literally read for like 3 weeks straight nothing but books of that character, and that's what happened with Batwoman. So I read Batwoman Elegy, Batwoman Hydrology, Volume 1, Batwoman To Drown the World, Volume 2, Batwoman World's Finest, Volume 3, and Batwoman Volume 4, This Blood is Thick. So, I'm not going to do a big breakdown into each individual book because then we'll be here for 20 hours. And then at that point, the Batwoman video that I'm working on will kind of be pointless. So, let me touch into it a little bit for you. So first off, Batwoman Elegy. If you want to read Batwoman, if you've never read Batwoman, this is the book to read. I need you to read this. I have read this book maybe like 40 times. I'm not exaggerating when I say I've read it 40 times, and every single time this book hits home with me. This book is so ridiculously important. Not only is it Batwoman's first quote-unquote series that was originally done in Detective Comics, but it also has Batwoman's origin story in it, and Batwoman's origin to me is probably the most important thing. So for those of you that don't know, Batwoman was written during the whole don't ask, don't tell phase during the military, which basically was like, you can be gay, but if you're publicly gay, then you're going to be discharged from the military. So you can be gay, but you need to be a quiet gay. And Batwoman basically said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she actually says, hey, I'm gay and I'm leaving the military. And that one page alone literally kills me every time. And I cried about it for the 40th time again because comics are just super powerful and super emotional. Not only that, but the Batwoman comics, especially when you look at Batwoman Elegy and 1 through 3, which has wonderful and beautiful art by J.H. Williams. This man is just absolutely insane. Like Batwoman, the art in Batwoman is honestly top tier when it comes to comics. There's nothing like it except for maybe Sandman. Now I haven't read Sandman, but I've seen panels of Sandman, and I know Jen is going to yell at me for not reading Sandman, but I'm going to put Sandman on my pile. I promise, Jen. But I feel like Batwoman comics, in terms of their art, there's nothing done like it. Whether it's indie, whether it's Cape Comics, these books are just beautiful. They have these big painted, splash pages. You have panels that are literally done in Batwoman's logo, which to me is just absolutely insane, and I can't believe that books like this exist. Batwoman Elegy, I think you definitely need to read. It has her origin. It also has her battle with Alice, who is probably her biggest villain, and is Alice in Wonderland themed, ironically, so that's kind of really interesting and really unique, especially when we look at Gotham villains. Batwoman Volume 1 of the New 52, which is entitled Hydrology. That introduces La Lorena and has a lot of really great gothic horror vibes to it that you don't see in comic books and superhero comic books. That book's a lot of fun. Batwoman Volume 2 kind of branches out a little bit. It brings more Flamebird into it, which is her sidekick, who's also her cousin. Volume 3, World's Finest, is Batwoman teaming up with Wonder Woman. Hello, Batwoman and Wonder Woman. Batwoman, Wonder Woman. I want to see more of Batwoman and Wonder Woman teaming up. Not only that, but I just want to see more of Batwoman interacting with other female characters of the DC universe in general. I feel like Batwoman, and I know I'm rambling in this month's video, y'all are just going to have to bear with me. My brain's not working the way it should, and I just love Batwoman, but I want to see Batwoman interact with more ladies in the DC universe. It feels like she's shut off in Gotham, and she's not allowed to interact with anybody else, and I really don't like that. It really makes me upset. Why can't Batwoman be friends with more people? And then you have Volume 4, which is okay. It's not the worst book in the world, but I will be honest, Batwoman Volume 4 of the New 52, which is also called This Blood is Thick. It reunites her with Alice, and I won't go into spoilers because you guys are going to have to read at least Elegy to understand what I'm talking about. But Batwoman Volume 4 brings back Alice. It has a lot of personal connections to it, and that's kind of where you should stop, because after Volume 4, actually in the middle of Volume 4, it starts to get a little bit convoluted, it starts to get a little bit weird. And then the last book of the month that I read, because, you know, I spent 20 minutes rambling about Batwoman, but listen, it's what I do. The last book that I read, I don't have, so we're going to flash it on the screen. It is Detective Comics Volume 1 of Rebirth, which is basically a Batwoman book. Listen, this book is basically a Batwoman book. So, Detective Comics Rebirth was probably one of the most inventive and creative books that came out of Rebirth. It really felt like a giant, huge Bat family book. So in this book, Batman actually goes to Batwoman because he knows that an army is coming and he knows that he can't deal with it on his own, and is targeting some of the heroes in Gotham. So Batman, listen, big old bad Batman, goes to Batwoman, Kate Kane, his cousin, who he knows is a superior bat. I don't make the rules. He goes to his cousin for help and he says, look, I need you to help me build an army. I need you to help me train these young heroes that are kind of crazy and kind of don't know what they're doing. So together, Batwoman and Batman go and they recruit Tim Drake Robin. They recruit Black Bat, Cassandra Cain, also known as Orphan in this book for whatever reason. They go and they recruit Stephanie Brown, who's the spoiler in this run. So they also go and they recruit Bazo Karloff, who is Clayface, because why not? Have villains on your side, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of cool. It's kind of neat. Basil is kind of a cutie patootie. We love him. Together, the two of them, and when I say together, I'm using that term loosely because it is mostly Batwoman who's training these young heroes and making sure that they're ready when these people come to Gotham and they kind of take over everything. Detective Comics Rebirth Volume 1 is a Batwoman book. Don't let anybody tell you different. This book really does focus on her character. There's a lot going on with her and her father and the turmoils that they have. And again, I'm not going to spoil it because I want you to read it. But there's a lot of things that really impact her character for the future. And rereading it again this month because, of course, I was in my Batwoman binger and I'm still kind of in a Batwoman binger. You know, it really did remind me that this is as much of a Batwoman book as it is a Bat family book or a Batman book. So if you're a fan of Batwoman, if you want to see more of the Bat family, because I think this book also works as a really great introduction for characters like Stephanie Brown or for characters like Cassandra Cain, I think that this book is really fun and I think that you should check out this book. Even though they make my girl ugly with this weird old buzz cut haircut, listen, Kate Kane rocking short hair is something that should exist. However, whoever drew this, we're not friends anymore. That's all I'm going to say. We're not friends. But that's it. That's everything for the month of August. That's my comic book wrap up for August. I'm sorry again if this one seemed a little disjointed. It feels a little disjointed as I'm talking and as I'm ranting. But looking back at the footage, it might not feel that way because that's what happens with a lot of my videos, surprisingly. But, you know, and listen, it's what I read. I read a lot of Batwoman. Can you blame me? She's the best character in the universe. I said it. Oh well. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Next month is going to be better. I promise. It's not going to be as disjointed. There's a couple of books on the list that I'm really excited to be talking about with you guys. We'll kind of get back into that formula that I've been following with my little wrap-up comic review things. I also have the new series roundup that's going to be coming at the end of the month. And let me tell you, listen, September is a really great month for new series and new comics. I've been doing those 90-second comic reviews over on my Instagram, so if you want a little bit of sneak peek as what's coming with the new series roundup, I also included everything that I'm going to be talking about aside from like one or two books that I decided I'm going to throw in there. But I basically spoiled all of the books that are going to be in the new series roundup for my patrons in my September newsletter. So if you want to know what books are coming, I guess you're going to have to go to Patreon. I don't make the rules. But I will see you, as always. We're going to wrap it up. Wrap-ups are kind of weird. I don't know. Help me wrap things up. Put in the comments below. Give me like a cool, fun quote. Give me something cool that I can say in my outro. Other than, you know, me screaming about comics and whatever. I don't know. That's just... I'm tired. I filmed 2 videos today. I'm just a little tired. So we're going to wrap this video up with saying that I will see you in the next one.